Welcome to episode 120 of the Coast to Coast AFL podcast with Nick and Blaze. I am Blaze, your host, and at this one, that's it. The home and away season is officially done and dusted. 18 teams down to 10. We go through the highs and lows of it this week. We talk about a little bit of serious stuff to begin with, but there is a lot to get through. So let's just jump straight in. How are you doing, Mr. Cyrek?
Not too bad, not too bad. I guess I've been unshackled by the team that I support. I'm reshackled to the AFLW, the Freo Women's. Was good, gave me a win. So I was like, you know what? It's not too bad. But, as I said, final game, got a win under a belt. And, as I said, it's been an interesting season, but, good to move on. We're going to be obviously talking about a bit of news, unsurprising, that dropped pretty much straight away. Got the emails pretty much in the morning. Everything keeps on spinning, teams move, but, as I said, say farewell to some teams, and we'll say goodbye to a couple of more before we go into serious finals. As we take this minor AFL mandated detour.
Yes, with the introduction of the wildcard round, it does technically extend the finals by a week, even though everyone kind of included the bye round as like a finals week anyway, because that was why it's there. But, I'm not going to say no to more footy, as long as, players' health and safety comes first, of course.
And a minor housekeeping as well. I should be getting a new mic next week because this one, if you've noticed, the audio quality's dipped. For some reason, in a lot of the stuff that I do with this mic, it just, after a few minutes, lowers. And don't know why it happens. So, it's an old mic. It's getting a rest. I had a bit of spare cash. So I was like, oh, I'll get a new one. And hopefully it will come for next week's episode. And you might not have the audio issues you've probably been having if you've been listening. The audio difference.
Yes. Really. The audio difference on my end now is just the fact that this room is still a little echoey. As you can see behind me, I've put up a shelf and I've got all my Pokemon plushes back on display. So that does soften the room a little bit because it's not as echoey in here as it was, which is good. I still want to get a rug for this floor. Because it's all currently liner, and I'm getting a couch behind me. So there'll be a little more stuff to help the noise in this room. But otherwise, it's been a good week in terms of the apartment and housekeeping and stuff like that. But we do have some stuff to get into, and we're going to start off with the serious topic of the whole Sydney Swans scandal. But we want to start with a little bit more of the lighthearted note with the AFLW Swans. Getting a record crowd at the historic doubleheader at the SCG, and pulling off an absolute incredible win alongside it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as I said, it was very back and forth for most of the game. I didn't have a chance to watch it, but I did see at the end, it was not just, all the news around it. It was really good to see because obviously with what happened, and we obviously in terms of specific details, we won't go too much into it except for a bit of the fallout and how it affects the final series and all that sort of stuff. But it was a lot, especially for the two clubs to go through. When you have news like that, it's not just, on a football field that gets disrupted. It's also on personal levels, whether how these findings end up, could change how you view people that you had around you, that you might have thought, you would think differently of if you knew. And it's just harsh. It's a tough thing to go through. But they were able to not only just, put that aside for a week, but organize a pretty good day. And, it was really good that even though a lot of fans had a bit of reservations about, how they want to frame getting to the game and all that sort of thing, it was really nice that a lot of the conversation was just giving a bit of extra support. Because when you have stuff on this sort of topic, a lot of the time it is women affected And it's also the people that have to deal with the outcome. It has to be people that deal with some of the negative conversations that come out of it.
Yes.
So it was really nice, to get, they didn't need to win, but it was really good to have the support there. And the fact that they not only break the crowd record, but was able to get out with a win, was very lightning to see in a week of fairly serious news.
Yes. So if it wasn't acutely obvious, we do stand with the victims of the incident. Of course, we also stand with the AFLW girls and the men's that were not involved in the whole scenario, which is why I'm really glad to see that a lot of the crowd that had gone to support the AFLW also stayed for the men's to support those boys because they're also feeling it and feeling pretty much their whole world kind of shattering in during this week. We'll talk about the game itself a bit later on. But it was really, really good to see a lot of, it's real proof that their club is really united on both sides. Especially when you saw the boys like Callum Mills and Errol Goulden go out after the girls won and celebrated with them. It really shows the interconnectivity between both groups. And it's not really something that we see too often across the entire league as a whole. We are seeing it more and more, I guess, as the AFLW does continue to grow. But I think the Swans, in their solidarity, really shows that despite how bad this kind of rocked their world, they're still very supportive of each other and building a good environment, a proper environment to be in.
Yeah, because as I said, at the end of the day, there was parts of the, release early on that, may not have been perfect. A few things probably could have been a bit better worded. But I think as the week went on, they did at least do as reasonable job as he can. Because again, at the end of the day, it is a bit hard, to sort out all the information on a Monday when the media is going at you for as much as possible. And to be able to compose yourself to put out, the statements that you need to, and actually translate that to feasible action. So you know what I mean? It's obviously their major issue is, as well as, this for what they've done this week is education further, making sure you've got the right environment to where people know that, though the alleged situations are not, a part of Sydney's culture. They don't want that sort of stuff to happen. And if it does happen, that it's hopefully one-off or, separate to what Sydney does. Which, as I said, they have to be strong on and they have to continue to be strong. It's not just a week thing. This culture thing, is not just in the future. It's what you do now that leads on into the future is what the aim should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, without getting into too much, detail or whatever, because again, the media is going to be talking about this and, to dissecting it for better or worse, as much as possible. But at the end of the day, when bad things happen, sometimes, even, you can be critical of it, but at least doing something tangible, which is making this game as good as it possibly could be, is at least a first step, as well as, of course, going through the necessary steps in terms of the thing itself. Again, we're talking more about the football side of things. As I said, the legal stuff is more of a separate issue that I don't think I would have the background or, things to comment on.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm very happy to let mainstream media kind of handle all of the brunt work on these sorts of topics, and we're just happy to be, our little slice in the corner that just goes a little bit more in detail about the games themselves, and some other neat little tidbits and stuff like that, and not necessarily about the whole entire landscape of the highs and lows of AFL and the media and stuff like that.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure too the Swans are 2-0. I'm pretty sure they had a comeback win against Adelaide last week, if I'm not mistaken. So they're in some pretty good form. Obviously, languishing a couple of years before us, went in the right direction last year, but short of the finals. But they might break in. As I said, win against Adelaide, again in Adelaide Oval last week.
Mm-hmm.
Who are actually winless too. Adelaide
Ooh.
didn't quite win it. We'll be covering AFLW as
Yes.
you know when the final series, and it's more time to be able to insert that in. But yeah, as I said, 2 wins in a row. Zippy Fish looking fantastic, continuing her growth, as well as the others like Malloy working back in after her injury-affected season last year, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they go. Because again, aside from all this, it's a very promising and talented young list who are looking to make a bit of a splash this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And we will highlight, again, as Sarek just said, we will highlight a little bit more of the AFLW as the finals series starts to wind down. And we have more time to dedicate to the AFLW. I do hope to get to a couple of games myself again this season. Although it does, now that I'm actually working days instead of nights, it does actually make it a little bit harder for the earlier games, but we'll make it work. All right.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's jump into some men's news now. Starting off with a couple of retirees, ones that were announced either last week or the week prior, but we wanted to cover once the season has officially ended, starting with Nic Holman.
Yeah, so honestly, is a journeyman that never really travelled, really. He played a long time for the Suns. He was a 2013 pickup, originally for the Blues. Sorry, yeah, of course, 2-club player.
Yes.
Sorry, I forgot about that small stint at the Blues. I think how many games he played?
9.
Just
9 games.
9 games for the Blues. Not really much known about him, except he was, a forward-ish player, pick number 51 in the draft. So, obviously, always seen as a bit of a depth player, but was able to go to the Suns and, through some pretty, slow years. Okay, so that rookie, he must have been out of the system for a couple of years before he went into the Suns.
I believe he might have been, yeah.
Yeah, because he was picked up as a rookie draft after a couple of years and went straight into the scene, played 22 games, pretty handy, and, 2018 Suns wasn't exactly setting the league on fire, and pretty much just a handy player. Played a bit midfield, played in the forward line, rough and tumble sort of player, high tackling pressure, not exactly a known goal kicker, but could still put some pressure in the inside 50 forward line. But mainly, just a handy little midfielder. Again, one of those careers where it's like, for a player that hasn't really, been known no one's really at the end of the season talking about the skill set or whatever of Nic Holman, but, to reach 150 games, and have at least a few years of consistency, you know what I mean? Like playing fairly regularly between 2022 to last year, where he started to fade out of the rotation a bit. As I said, obviously, yeah, the Suns are a bit of a weaker team, but sometimes you need that reliability to start building into more positive swings. And, as I said, he was part of that Suns upside. Obviously, a player that was probably going to be replaced by a more, dominating player, obviously, in that Suns midfield. It quickly was established that they were very much relying on Took, Rao, and Anderson, and now Petrarca, for better or worse, adds to that mix. But, he's a player, not really much to say about it. I can't really remember any particular Nic Holman games or Nic Holman highlights, but, as I said, industrious, hardworking, and, not bad career. 154 games from pick 51. I mean, well above average in terms of
79 goals as of this article being written. I believe he kicked at least 2 in the game we're about to talk about, so that brings it to about 81-ish goals. Solid journeyman player. You can't ask much more of someone who's willing to play for a role, which is pretty much what he sort of filled in for. I believe prior to the Gold Coast Suns establishing their prior to this season dominant midfield. But it's just part of the journey. And playing pretty much over 150 games is it's not that common, surprisingly enough, in an AFL system. There are a lot of players that go through the system that barely get to 50. So to get to get at least 150 is so good for him. And yeah, I don't really have too much more to add, to be honest. So we will salute. Thank you very much, Nic Holman, for your service to the AFL, and we hope you have a wonderful retirement. But now we jump over to St Kilda, where Dougal Howard announced his retirement.
Yeah, Diggy Howser. Obviously, I've got a bit of fondness towards him, and sort of like Nic Holman, a very mid-round pick. Pick 56 in the 2014 draft. Took a couple of years to get going, but when he plugged into that 2018 side, it really, really looked like he was going to be a mainstay. Port had a lot of tall talent back there. Obviously, it was the start of Jonas's career. It might have been finished Trengo's career, but they also had a few, like Houston would have started getting in the rotation. There's a few others. Again, it's weird. A few of them went, but like they had a lot of tall players come and go. Anyway, sort of fell a bit out of favour. I think he had a bit of an injury in 2019, but also just couldn't quite break into the squad. But again, very handy. But went to a team that needed a bit more stock in defence, which was Saints, and obviously Cal Wiki was starting to emerge as a consistent and elite talent. But they just needed a bit more than that. So Diggy Howser, obviously fills that role. You can't really have any other nickname if your name's Dougal Howard.
Yeah, his options were very limited when it comes to nicknames.
But for those younger than Blaze, we're obviously talking about Diggy Howser, MD, the first show, I guess, by Neil Patrick Harris.
Yeah, it was one of his very, very earlier shows.
Might have been 90s, to be honest. Anyway, early on. So yeah, and you know what? Did it reasonably. I mean, it's not defender that really broke the house down. Obviously, I think probably the reason why he fell out of the rotation was he was not quite, at the lockdown sort of level I need to. But, for a team that needed him, extended his career, and he did fairly serviceable at it. Okay-ish disposal. He's never like a accumulator, but he wasn't terrible with ball in hand. Reasonably okay 1v1s. And yeah, as I said, just sort of did what he needed to do. Surprisingly less games than Nic Holman.
Yes, with only 100 as of the game just gone, which is crazy considering. Oh, sorry, 100 came for the Saints. 145 total.
Oh yeah.
Which is a little crazy, but again, when your body gets hampered by injuries and like struggles to keep up with the system, your only options are what's ahead of you. But the fact that he was able to get his body right, at least for a farewell game, is an absolute credit to him. Again, 145 games. It's still a really solid innings is what I was trying to go for.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? As I said, it's just one of those things where it's like, sometimes it's weird because I've always liked him. Again, not that standout sort of player, but you know what I mean? I think they're just sort of the players that make up, teams and eras and all that, that when you look back and it's like, I remember Diggy Howser, it's like that brief moment where, you're young kid playing a bit above average, and as I said, just funny nickname and you grow a bit fond of him. So, what I'm trying to say is like, sometimes they're just nice people to have around,
Yeah.
And yeah, as I said, so even though it might not go down as the most illustrious career, is a very solid knock from where he was drafted, and as I said, was able to extend his career just by being a consistent sort of role player. And yeah, also kicked 15 goals.
Yes.
He briefly played a stint in Port's forward line when they were struggling to find another key forward. Dixon, I think, was a bit injured at that stage, like he normally was. And they were just putting anyone with a body down there. So yeah, Diggy Housey, I think it is time to farewell you.
Yeah, we hope he has a wonderful retirement. Other players that have announced their retirements will be talked about when their season officially finishes, like Tom McDonald, Steel Sidebottom, and of course Tex Walker. We still have a couple of games to go until that happens. As a side note as well, earlier today, as of recording, the squad of 44 for the All Australian was announced. We will probably be doing a bonus video talking about that, as well as our own All Australian selections, which will obviously get further revealed on Brownlow night from memory. No, sorry, it's before that, on awards night. So, but we'll give you guys pretty much just a bit more in-depth discussion as to like the players selected and stuff of that nature later in the week. But all right, let's jump over now to.
Oh, I was gonna say just minorly touching on the like minor free agency stuff that's happened.
Yes.
I just want to mention it because it's called sport. Zak Butters has officially made a note that he is leaving to Victoria. Confirmed left the club, which is the surprise of no one.
No.
It was one of the most writing on the wall moves. Again, though,
to what
honestly,
club?
It was nice.
We don't know yet.
Oh, we don't know. Apparently not Collingwood, by this exclusive article. Collingwood, too good for Zak Butters. Don't need him. I don't know.
It would be really funny is if he said no to Collingwood, but yes to Richmond. That would be funny. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think the Dogs or Geelong are probably the front runners. But it'll be
it's
interesting.
a lot of money though for Richmond. He's a competitor though, so
I know, but like he wants to win that premiership. Like we know how close.
And he wants to return to Victoria.
Especially with his family that are out in the western suburbs, it makes sense to look for at the two teams that based out that way. But we digress.
Yeah,
it is a little sad.
Yeah, it is. And look, as I said, like the way that he conducted himself that year, like he was not shying away from any contest afraid that he was going to lower his draft stock or anything, your trade stock or whatever. He was always want to go at it, and he just did it so professionally. And again, I always appreciate it when, he did at least, and I know it's a bit putting on a performance, like he knows more than likely at some point in the season he was going to go. It might not have been exactly at the start, but I think somewhere he just sort of agreed, internally thought so. But, he did as professionally as could, never made it a media circus, and gave it all for the club, and put a nice little video in my members inbox, farewelling the club, hoping, the best for Port Adelaide and all that sort of thing. So very amicable breakup. Right timing for it too. Like he was able to take us through some pretty good periods and a couple of rebuilding years. He didn't just leave straight away when it was looking to go a bit downhill. If he left last year, it might have left a bit more of a sour taste in the mouth. But, he did that and, he leaves. And, yes, I'm obviously fine with it. I've been convincing myself throughout the year that we're going to be a bit okay. And we'll talk about the possible replacements when we get Ports.
Yes.
But to wrap it all up with a minor news, GWS has come out and said that Jesse Hogan and Jake Stringer...
Yes.
I was about to mix them up. Have both decided to be mercenaries once again, with GWS looking to rebuild a bit more naturally. Again, makes sense with Jake Stringer. Obviously, he was always planned to be polished on top, and their forward line really can't use that inconsistency. I think Jake the Strike is going to be pretty much a mercenary for the end of his career, how long he wants to go to. He'll go to a top club that can need a little boost in their forward line. Whoever that is whoever that is.
Would this
probably same with Jesse Hogan too?
If Jesse Hogan does get picked up, would this make it his fifth club?
GWS. Sorry, we'll start at the start. Melbourne, Fremantle, GWS.
It's fourth. Okay.
Fourth,
If he gets picked up, he joins the
question mark.
The 4-club group, which there isn't that many players in that group. So
no, likes of Tom Campbell, Jacob Townsend, other people.
Yeah, there's a couple going around, that's for sure. But yeah, so there's a couple of players to keep an eye on during this off season as that starts to get underway, as finals comes through and then ends off at the end of September. But with all that said and done, it is time to jump into the round that was the final home and away season of 2026. Starting off at a Thursday night clash. It's a dead rubber clash. At the end of the day, both these teams are already eliminated from finals contention. But at Marvel Stadium, St Kilda did host the Gold Coast Suns, featuring two of the retired players that we had just spoken about, of course, being Dougal Howard and Nic Holman. And with a 23-point margin, the Suns did win out 14-19, 103 to 12-8, 80.
Yeah, and as you said, it was a fun clash, even if it was a bit meaningless. Gold Coast, I think, really deserved to win. They were better for all four quarters, and their stats sort of indicated that well. And if they had better set shots, they would have absolutely been a blowout. But because it was a bit of a lowish, maybe not lowish pressure, but you know what I mean. It's sort of the more free-flowing that you get when players aren't really looking to get injured in a meaningless clash like this. You want to get a good precinct going up. So, went hard without going hard.
Yeah.
I would describe this game. Good early performances by Garcia, Hall and Hill. Kept them in touch with the first half. But after that, Suns would sort of just dominate in clearances and separate these two. Surprisingly, a lot of potent back half ball movement by the Suns. Hasn't really been a strong point for this year. But Noble, Rioli, and Jeffries were quite solid this game. As I mentioned before, Brad Hill had a 300th to remember. I think he ended up getting over 40 disposals. He said a couple.
It's 2 weeks in a row that he was so close to breaking Lee Montagne's record. So close.
Yeah.
But he just couldn't do it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, what was Lee Montagne's record?
47, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like that high and that close.
Yeah, so again, 42, really solid. And as I said, but for the Suns, yeah, I mean, for one game at the very least at the end of the season, their midfield gelled fairly well. Is it a concern that it happened without Petrarca? You know, who knows? That might be talked about in the off-season, but like the middle core did well against a team that's pretty decent at defending stoppage. They're no slouch, the Saints. And Lombard continues to be a bright spark. But apart from that, there's nothing really too much apart from just wrapping up a bit of a dour season. I think the Suns moved up a spot by winning this game, for better or for worse. So they're a bit less close to
the bottom.
I think they overtook the Roos.
Potentially.
Yeah, so I think they did actually, because I mentioned that the Roos were only one above fourth.
Oh yeah, they were. I think they were like maybe not like half a game, but like, I think it were like a game and like a tiny bit of percentage difference, which the Suns I think made up. So yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, as I said, pretty solid. Again, they were just okay. A few of the kids had alright games. Adenasaur added a bit. Jake Rogers was a bit lively without hitting on the scoreboard. Boyle continued to have a pretty nice season. Again, a very weird split between DeConing and Marshall, and obviously you'll talk about the minor incident which befell Tom DeConing very late in the game. But yeah, as I said, not really much to talk about. While the Saints, it's a bit weird. Like, they had a lot of really good performers. Ryan Burns, maybe extending his career by coming on the wing, kicking a nice couple of goals. He was had an okay month. But apart from that, just a bit, still those signs of being a bit unbalanced at times too, as they never quite get their entire depth right. So, as I said, still grown from last year. I don't think it's fair to say that they haven't made
no, I think
positive steps.
I think this year
it's really
for the
just the
Saints
consistency.
is definitely more of an improvement.
Yeah, they've traded a bit of that ceiling, a bit of that upset, just to play more consistent football week in, week out, which you think would help the growth. But they really do need to consolidate on some positions. There's some players that are probably batting very much below par in terms of what you would want in the output of the season. But same could be said about Gold Coast with some of their depth too. So, yeah.
Yeah, considering we all thought Gold Coast were going to be a lot better this season after their first trip into finals last season. There's definitely a lot that could be said. We've already spoken at length about it on multiple occasions. We'll
I
talk
think
about
I
it a
look
little
at the
bit more
ladder.
in the off season as
Yeah.
well, like about what sort of changes, the highs and lows of the season and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um,
I think, yeah, I had to look at the ladder, and I think you had them either fifth or sixth, and I had them fourth,
yeah,
and like
we both
finals
had them pretty
contenders.
high because we really liked
Yeah,
what we saw,
bit wrong,
but
bit
very
wrong.
very wrong. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, we'll also do that towards as we get closer to the off season as well as like compare the final standings of the ladder and what we initially thought as well, and all of
Mm,
the other fun little tidbits that we got wrong throughout the season. But yeah, like I do agree that I think this is an improvement on St Kilda's season, at least compared to last year. But they're not
yeah.
right where they should be. Just they're like at the bottom of the middle of the pack is the way I
Fans
kind
will
of
be
see it.
frustrated still.
Yeah,
Is really
there
where it's
there
at
was
the end of
definitely
the
some
day.
games that they had that they should have won. Um,
Hmm.
but there are very much a lot of games that they probably also deserve to lose. But this also like games like this, like honestly, 23-point margin isn't the worst. Um, but when you consider that like they're kind of still hinging a lot on Naz, it does really put into perspective like how much have the Saints actually grown when he's not playing.
Yeah, as I said, like as good as Naz is like they've still got some depth. Max Sol, as I said, he was pretty solid last year, and his stock just continued to rise. Honestly, as I said, I have a lot of respect for what he's done
Agreed.
in the season.
I've been very impressed with
And
him.
Garcia and Boxall, they've both had some good games here and there, especially this round. Were pretty good.
Yeah, I
Again,
think
consistency more for Garcia, but he has actually edged towards that compared to some of his peers.
St
So
Kilda are
yeah.
really starting to develop their midfield core around these sorts of
Hmm.
players, plus Naz, of course. And then obviously you've got your Brad Hill on the outside, your Jack Sinclair's out and half back.
Yeah.
They've
Just
got
need to fix up the forward line and the defense.
and
How hard can
and
that be?
figure out what's going on with your ruck situation, because is Rowan
Oh yeah,
Marshall
that,
staying? Does he still want to go to
I
Geelong?
don't know.
That we'll find that out in the off season. On the injury side of things, Jack Savani and Tom DeKoning both with right shoulder injuries to round out the season. I'll be honest, it was kind of expected from Savani. He's been a little hampered with shoulder injuries throughout his career.
Yeah.
So one was probably going to come to get him at some point. But it is really unfortunate that happened right at the end. So hopefully it means probably surgery for them both, and then hopefully a solid preseason going into 2027.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Silvani's always had that. You gotta hope he survives. There's a reason why Saints didn't have to pay too much of a premium for him. So, yeah. Anyway, it's probably
Yeah,
about as much as that match sort
pretty
of.
much. On the MRO side of things, Hugh Boxall was fined $1,875 for staging. Toby Travalia was fined $1,000 for staging. Ben Jepson was fined $1,000 for contact with an umpire. And Dan Butler was suspended for one match for rough conduct against Mac Andrew. With the article about Dougal Howard's retirement also saying that he might not even be playing on in 2027, as he
Yeah,
does not have a
but I said
contract
he's
right
going to
now.
make a decision. Yeah, as I said, so that might be a Matthew Lloyd type suspension where he never fills it out. So probably not as bad as Matthew Lloyd's last suspension might be, but still,
not as bad.
um,
Definitely not.
yeah.
All right. Time to jump over now to a big Friday night clash at the MCG between the Pies and the reigning premiers, the Brisbane Lions. And with a 63-point margin, the Lions continue to flex their muscles into September and are primed and ready for another go at it. 25-9, 159 to 15-6, 96.
Yeah, well, as I said, this takes a big hit to Collingwood's credentials because, again, against the top four teams, they haven't really been taking any huge scalps. I think they're pretty good against teams around them, but to see this sort of gap, going into a final season where every game could be your last, is not very good. And it was pretty much a defensive collapse because it was a decent-ish first half. I saw Collingwood get a lot of kids hit the scoreboard, which was really good. They sort of provided hope for a decent upset. Used Sands a lot to try and break the line. Seemed to go okay in the first half. And the Lions, surprisingly, just couldn't lay hands on the Pies. They're never been a huge tackling team, but it was pretty dismal tackling pressure. However, despite the decent conversion, the Pies just couldn't contain the Lions in the front half of the second half of the game. Logan Morris kicking 4 up until the half, doubling by the end of the games, and the Lions all sort of added from there. And it was a lot of damage from the stoppages, 84 points, and a significant clearance win. Neil's got 16 clearances, 7 score involvements, which was a team high, and set up a bulk of play and set up Ashley and Dunkley to also have big games. Howe definitely needs a bit more protection back from injury. But as I said, Billy Frampton unfortunately had his hands full with Logan Morris and Liam Punchett contained to Allen. There was not really much the Pies could do with the higher entries that Brisbane were able to get from their clearance advantage. Collingwood was scoring okay, but the key defenders for Brisbane did their job well enough. And again, that's what we've said about the Lions. They just need their defense to be well enough, and they can really rack up them scores. So at the end of the day for Collingwood, it's simple. You've got 1 week to patch up your defense against the Dogs lineup with a lot less key forward potency. So, you might have a chance in that game, but you really want to get that right straight away so you can bring some positive form onto the next game, because all this is a bit of a knock to the ego. For the Lions, you have momentum. You'll have the full confidence to take this campaign to the proper premiership defense on grand final day, because they have yet again not really taken too much of a step wrong in this back half of the season. Yeah, there was the Carlton game, but again, they've just shown that they can quickly patch up things. And yeah, any game, you can say a team may or may not get up or whatever. You can always have freak performances, but you'd have to back in the consistency for the Lions. Yeah. Again, in terms of winning the premiership, I would not have them any less than Freo just because of their finals experience. Maybe Freo's more likely to make the grand final. Again, I don't have any doubts that they should prove themselves and take it to. It would be a minor surprise not to see them there. But the Lions just probably have a bit more in terms of experience to where you would expect that they would be fairly composed in grand final day if they got their team there. So, again, they'll be the biggest threat if they're actually at the big dance.
Yeah, I think just based off of what we saw from Freo over the weekend, especially because of they don't have as much experience on the MCG, just for a start. I think the Lions definitely pose probably the biggest threat in the final series because of their experience and because they are a very well-rounded team, a very threatening team. They've beaten majority of the teams in the top 8. I think they've only lost to maybe like 1 or 2 of them off the top of my head.
I think they were third in terms of records against finals team. Geelong was surprisingly ahead of them. Brisbane were 7-6 in terms of record against finals teams. Did have a bit of a hard draw. Again, Geelong.
That's true. They did early on. That's right.
Sydney were about 6-5, so they're ahead of them, but they played less games. Yeah, so I would give the edge to Brisbane on that. So Fremantle 11-3 though. So again, this year you would back them in terms of getting a job done against big teams. Brisbane you would wait a bit further due to experience, and you can't really forget about Geelong.
Geelong are always in and around.
Shaky.
So yeah, definitely going to be interesting. But yeah, no, like it was a very good game from the Lions. Again, it just shows that this time of year they are, especially in the past couple of years, they are really, really good, and they're really well coached, and they have their system locked in, and they have majority of their players back, both from injury and or suspension. So like they're pretty locked in for this finals campaign. They get the week off to rest, of course. They don't play wildcard round. Whereas Collingwood, they're on a short time limit to try and figure out what they're going to do. Whether these injuries to Scott Pendlebury and Dan Houston are going to be a big factor into this upcoming game, especially Dan Houston, because they need his movement off halfback. Scott Pendlebury, I think, could be very 50-50, but just purely because of, the age. And stuff like that. Okay. But it's going to be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I think they've moved on from needing Scott Pendlebury to do some damage. He is very nice cream on the top.
He is.
However, as I said, I think there is still positive. Again, they've got the young kids to hit the scoreboard, because that's the thing we've talked about Collingwood. Like, at the start of the year, we thought, if they could, their defense should be fine. They just need to get something going in the forward line. Obviously, with the Bobby Hill delisting / moving on from, it was made even worse. And look, they made a lot of effort. Charlie West has been, surprisingly solid for a backup forward option. Obviously, Angry Anderson, whatever you want to call him, 3-2, has always seemed to just kick a goal. He's batting above a goal a game for pretty much out of nowhere mid-season. He was a draft pick rookie. I can't quite remember. But either way, doing fairly well. And obviously Sam Swaddling, I should say. Absolute revelation. So, there are some things to build upon, but, as I said, big question marks. It's going to be hard to see them winning more than 2 games into the final. They do have the ability to beat the Bulldogs, but this is a knock to the chin, really. Considering about the game that we will talk about in a few games' time.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting and probably a tough watch over the next couple of days to see what comes out. I do want to give a shout out to our boy Billy Frampton. I think overall he's had a really, really solid season, having to stand up as the number 1 key defender with Dusty Moore out for pretty much the entire season. He's done as much as I'm not a fan of Collingwood, he's done a fantastic job down the back. I think it's criminal that he was not selected for the squad of 44 for All-Australian. But Harris Andrews is probably going to get that spot regardless, just because it's Harris Andrews.
Well, yeah. To be fair, though, like, they did say that they weren't going to count round 24, and obviously the news happened delaying it a week. Probably worked against his favour, because, again, when you get 8 kicked against you in the final round, it's not the best as a key back.
Especially when the guy is like 5-6 years younger than you. It's a little embarrassing.
Yeah, again, though, as I said, sort of just the, where Collingwood's systematic defence. He hasn't had much.
But I mean, whilst we're on it, like, Logan Morris, what a forward. Like, for being such a young tall, and is basically has the sort of game style.
We're basically talking about him as if he's played 10 years.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like, we expect him to do well.
He has the sort of game style. He's got great game sense, and he competes like he's a veteran footballer. And he's barely played 50 games. Like, not even.
Exactly. So, he was fastest to a certain amount of goals. I can't remember what it was. I think it was fastest to 50 or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Anyway. Either way, fantastic player. And probably unfair that Brisbane unearthed him. But it's not like he was a top round draft pick at the same time.
No, very true.
They put in the effort, found him in the draft, and, sometimes it just goes to show, sometimes it's just what you work with, and if you have a good culture, sometimes you can bring the most out of these players. As I said, I don't want to gloat too much about Brisbane. I don't know whether it's good for the AFL that they're looking to get back into that or not, but they should be there and abouts. And,
absolutely.
As I said, looking back, taken pick 31 in the 2023 national draft.
So it wasn't even in the first round. Like, that's...
No. So,
such a lucky find.
Plenty other teams had a chance to go for him, but they were able to get him, get the culture around. And, as I said, take that into another finals campaign for him.
Yeah.
Already got a premiership medal. Like, they're pretty easy to get when you're...
when you're living up in Brisbane, yeah. But yes, as mentioned, injuries to Scott Pendlebury with a knee bursa and Dan Houston with a finger injury. I imagine the finger injury is probably more on the minor side of things, so he should be okay for the wildcard game. And on the MRO side of things, Ty Gallop is fined $2,000 for rough conduct against Charlie West.
Knee bursa is possible to get back from. It really depends on how the inflammation settles around it. Normally it's how your body reacts to it. A lot of fluid leakage, all that sort of stuff. So, hopefully, if it's not too bad, if it's not causing too much pain, he might go, but they might have to suck it and see without him. It's short turnaround.
Yeah, it's a very tight turnaround. So there's a lot of fingers will be crossed in the Collingwood fan base that he's able to get up. But
Mm.
let's jump over now to Marvel Stadium for our first Saturday game with Carlton hosting Fremantle. And with a 37-point margin, the Blues made their mark against the top of the table team 18-11, 119 to 12-10, 82.
Yeah, and look, you might say, oh, he's still technically a caretaker coach, but Josh Fraser, I would say this is pretty much his first coach win. Really,
I think so. It was he was
he's
basically locked in during the week. Yeah.
Yeah, so as I said, and what a statement! Almost, well, probably more impressive than his initial statement. And it can be said, a lot be said about, oh, Freo didn't have much to play for, but make no mistake, I was watching this game, and Freo tried, but failed to come back against this spirited Carlton side. That just had a lot of answers and took advantage of a pretty disorganized day for Freo's defensive structure. They'll finish on top, I think, for defensive scheme and defensive based numbers, defensive ranking, whatever you want to call it. But Carlton did a number. And they've had a few games where they've been a bit disorganized in defense. Again, it's going to be a minor talking point, even though they obviously did well enough to, get number one spot for the season. Carlton's Kizo did a fantastic job of leading space, creating some toughish but numerous consistent shots, whilst Frankie Evans and Ben Ainsworth had a day out distributing while hitting the scoreboard for 8 combines. I mean, Frankie Evans, you talk about players that no one put a lot of stock into. And again, we're talking about a Carlton system where small forwards essentially went to die with the obviously Charlie Kerner and Harry Mackay combo. They did not generate ground level shots with those two. They were full on doubling down with the set shot. But as things change, he's found a name for himself and the system suited him. Probably worked bloody hard to get his reputation back in to a solid player because, again, wasn't Port's favourite player and definitely didn't make much of a name for himself.
Definitely a bit of a punching bag over in South Australia.
Yeah, exactly. And the way he's been able to turn around, I just got to give a lot of credit to it. Glazing aside, back to the match. Freo Wildcard second to the bowl. Really only decent efficiency from their inside 50s that kept them within any sort of chance. Tracy being the glue toll for the game. And Voss still limiting his limited chances, except for that one rundown tackle where he sort of tripped over, muffed an instant goal chance. Felt a bit sad for him. Had a pretty quiet game, but was very keen to get himself involved. Just really couldn't. Again, probably get a bit better structure when Amos comes back into the side. They seem to work best together, even if one of them doesn't have such a big game. Again, I guess the best thing for Freo is without Amos or Reed, they were still scoring well, and did sure to ensure that Wadering, who looked a bit behind the pace, tried to take advantage of it. But Carlton's defense, again, did really good protecting him. I'm really, really enamored by this youngish Carlton backline who have taken, they're like, okay, like any backline, needs a bit of experience. It's tough to keep that consistency. And they really want Jacob Wiedering for as long as he's going to stay at Carlton. Obviously, if he goes, then the mantle goes to Haynes to be that leadership. And but as I said, they're batting well above average, and it's a lot to be said. Yeah, as I said, Fockers too just didn't have too much venom to their ball use. Bolton was exciting in moments. Brayshaw was consistent, but the midfield output was probably the main thing you would be critical of going into this last month as a whole, going into the final series. I wouldn't stress too much, but I would target that if I was the opposition.
Yep.
But in terms, of the last 5 weeks, Carlton are probably one of the best stoppage teams going around. Like, I know that they were very good at stoppages under Voss, but it was unsustainable. They've actually gotten to a point where their stoppage work has actually sort of come back to those earlier levels. So they're almost having their cake and eating it too. So very nice going into the final series. Again, I'm a bit skeptical that they'll do much more than maybe get a nice win. But it's much better than where they were looking at beforehand.
Oh yeah.
And they've got enough, again, they've a very positive record at the back half of the year. If you take away the Voss era, you could say that they've proved themselves well enough to be able to do a bit of damage. Are they the best of the wildcard teams? I'd still probably give it to Melbourne, but Melbourne too have had, are just good enough. I think people were a bit jumping the gun. Even myself, I sort of caught on to the dream when they beat on Fremantle. But, you got to remember that they're a fairly young team with some flaws still. And you know what? Maybe the Blues aren't that step behind them, because that's who they're going to face. Should be a really good contest of two teams going at it. But at the end of the day, despite how good both the seasons go, one of those teams will be eliminated. Essentially not even make the proper finals, as we call it. Or Ed Richards. I don't know if you saw much that went on today. Would call it bit harsh on already. Ed Richards made a little off-ad comment. And the AFL-CIO tried to dunk on him. Pretty unfair too, because it was a pretty measured response. He just said that, oh yeah, I'm just going to take it as like one extra week. But it should be exciting for the fans' perspective. Well, but unfortunately, he got a bit dunked on.
Realistically, all that it is for like these four teams is really around 25. Like that's pretty much what it is. Look, except the only downside is that they don't get that extra. If they win, they don't get that that bye round that's meant to be before finals.
I'll just say it's a finals warm up. Really, it's got the stakes of a finals. I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't get up for this game, again, it's like, what are you doing in the AFL? Like, there's no reason why these players shouldn't be able to bring out like a finals like performance. But at the end of the day, I think the test of mettle will really come. Like, I just think that, as I said, a win against a team around you is just what it is.
Yeah.
Whereas, again, the bigger test will be when you're versing teams that have more than proved themselves and had that extra week of football.
I just had a look at the opening round fixture, and 3 of the teams playing in the wildcard played in opening round. So technically, this is like a round 26 for some of these teams, which is an insane. It's literally half a year of footy, not including finals. Like,
yeah. I mean, as I said, it's sort of weird how it ended up. Again, AFL probably very happy to get the MCG. Probably a bit cheesed off that the Western Bulldogs, who we'll talk about in a second, had the audacity to rob them of a Carlton Collingwood grand whatever final.
Hey, it's still
but at the end of the day,
it's. Oh, I was gonna say it's still technically. Yeah. It is still technically feasible. For it to eventually happen.
Feasible. I mean, they could both make the grand final technically.
Technically. So. But yeah, no, like in terms of this game, like Carlton, like they did not miss a step. Like it felt like this was still
so
even though at this point they were locked in for wildcard, like the top 10 had already been decided. We talked about this last week. They were 100% on track to just continuing to prove their worth and that they essentially deserve to be here. That they fought hard in the second half of this season. To really make their mark. And, being able to take down Freo, whether or not Freo were doing a little bit of sandbagging, that remains to be seen. Carlton have a point to prove. I don't think they were either. But Carlton had a point to prove and proved that they have. And, if they're able to do even more damage in the wildcard round, that it could mean that they could be a little bit of a threat come the actual finals games.
Yeah. Oh, they'll be a fun team to bandwagon for. Like, to be honest, I want to see them go a bit further than just this. But at the same time, on the flip side of that requires Melbourne losing straight away, and that would be a bit of a shame because again,
they've also had a really good season after the turmoil that they had last season. So yeah, both of these teams have had really. True. Both of these teams have a really fun storyline going on in 2026. So that is definitely something to keep an eye on. But yeah, in terms of Freo's side of things, it's probably minor worries, especially in their midfield. There's definitely a little bit there that can be capitalized on for more aggressive teams. But I think they're very well coached. And a majority of the players that they need are very healthy. Like they'll work through
Yeah.
it as they needed. And
Yeah.
when it comes to their first finals game, out at Optus, of course, it'll be a Thursday night clash. It'll be very interesting to see what goes down.
Yeah, as I said, Chips Daniels still back them in, but you know what I mean? It's like even like taking like it's not that they were absolutely spanking, like they were still an arm's length away. I still think they got pretty much outplayed, but you know, again, I think one of the more impressive things about Freo, even when they're being beaten, it doesn't really feel like they're that much out of the contest.
No.
Except probably for that GWS game, but GWS will not be making a finals appearance, so they don't even have to worry about that.
Correct.
So,
all right, on the injury side of things, Brennan Cox came up with a calf concern, and Josh Tracy with some general soreness. It wasn't initially confirmed why Tracy was marked down in the injury side of things, so I've just kind of labeled it as generalized soreness. He's probably okay.
Oh, it's just a bit of a knock. I don't think it'll affect for 2 weeks.
But, no, he should be alright.
The biggest one.
But we do have a Rising Star announcement, and it is another big Rising Star for Carlton, with Billy Wilson taking home the round 24 nomination.
Yeah, so, you know, he's been really solid as a defender. So obviously his stats isn't going to be huge that round, but he's still got 18 disposals going at, we'll call it 90% efficiency, 89. And with 9 marks, couple of intercepts,
couple of score involvements. Like he was doing some solid work with that halfback.
Yeah, exactly. And it's sort of one of those things where it's not a distributing defender, but he's very accountable. So again, I'm glad he got the knock, because it's sort of hard to sort of always tangibly note his impact. But their defense has just been a lot more solid. Again, his work with Cowan, Dirksen, Harry Dean has been really good. And, you know, obviously with Wiedering coming back, that might even add more solidarity. As I said, Carlton, they're probably, like last year, they were fairly decent defense too. They just had no scoring offense. So the fact that they had some pieces sort of shift around a bit, you know, lose Wiedering, but still be able to get that, just shows that, you know, at least some of their defensive structures were fairly systematic, and that they should be raising some new good talent there. Yeah,
like, and he's like the 4th Carlton nominee of the season, the most of any club in the competition. And, you know, he's joined, you know, Jagger Smith in round 1, Harry Dean in round 12, and Taylor Byrne in round 20. Like, Carlton have, like, debuted some really, really talented players this season.
Yeah.
And like
okay. Yeah. Wade Dirksen was 25. That sort of rules him out, I guess.
Yes.
Just a fraction.
He's just slightly too old. But yeah, no, and the fact that, like, these kids are about to experience finals, or at least like a finals intensity, even if Wildcard isn't a finals round in most people's eyes, I think it's going to have that same sort of intensity, and I think it's going to really show like the tenacity that these kids have built throughout this season.
Yeah, in terms of finals round, it's like, I don't like it for like finals records and all that, but in terms of like finals atmosphere, you know, like the you know, allowing kids to play, or, you know, players to get experience under that, I think that still counts.
Yeah.
Again, if someone broke the record for like most goals in a game because they beat up like a team that they managed to scrape 10th, though, you're just going to be rolling your eyes a little bit or something like that.
Yeah. So just a brief recap on all 25 Rising Star nominees. We got Leo Lombard from the Gold Coast Suns, Jagger Smith, Joe Shanahan from West Coast, Willem Dersma from West Coast, Cooper Trenbarth from North Melbourne, Jacob Farrow from Essendon, Phoenix Gothard from GWS, Sam Grill from Richmond, Jack Whitlock from Port Adelaide, Sullivan Roby from Essendon, Josh Lindsay from West Coast, Patrick Rechko from Richmond, Harry Dean, Cooper Hines from the Western Bulldogs, Jasper Olga from Richmond, Jai Murray from Gold Coast, Ty Gallup from Brisbane, Zeke Hewland from Gold Coast, Riley Hamilton from GWS, Dyson Sharp from Essendon, Taylor Byrne, Mitch Edwards from Geelong, Jesse Totoli from Sydney, and Sam Swadling from Collingwood. And as far as I'm aware, Jagger Smith and Harry Dean are the runaway favourites to potentially win overall come awards night.
Jagger.
I would assume
it's
probably
I still like what Dean's done, but like, he is like, I mean, again, like he's almost all Australian contention. In
When
his
when
first
you have a
year.
mid
Like,
when it's him and
mm,
Sam Walsh and Patrick Cripps,
mm,
like that is an elite trio in of itself. And
yeah,
he's only played his like first official season.
yeah, yeah. When I say that, I meant all Australian squad contention.
Oh yeah, I know.
I don't think it's all Australian, but like, yeah, as I said, but honestly, when you compare the midfields that were in and around, like your Sheasel, your Max Sol who missed out on the squad. We'll talk about this later, and
Yes.
I think there was another one that was hard done by. Yeah, as I said, the stats are pretty similar. Healthy score involvement, solid clearances, and a decent. I mean, possessions fairly high actually. So he ticks a fair few boxes. When you get to that point, it's a bit of gut feel and what you do and don't like. But yeah, as I said, really solid.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's jump over now to the MCG where the Demons hosted the Bulldogs. A little bit of a finals firefight in the lead up to the wildcard round, and with a 21-point margin, the Dogs take it home 16-12, 108-12, 15-87.
Yeah, honestly, a bit of surprise because again, the Dogs haven't looked that sharp. I was very critical of them going into this game, especially that forward line. And I know Melbourne isn't the most defensive team, and we'll talk about that, but it was, really, really, I guess, positive. No, of course it's positive, but you know what I mean, is almost impressive, I would say, for them to be able to take it around. And again, it was pretty much a form inversal, obviously, with Melbourne taking off Freo the week before. Yeah, the Bulldogs just looked really composed, had control most of the match, and also got some nice practice on the MCG, where, as I mentioned before, they'll take on Collingwood next week. Again, the D smacked the Dogs around in the contest, which is the opposite of what you would expect. They had the clearance dominance, but couldn't get the ball moving on the wing, whilst the back half of the Bulldogs was pretty much excellent. Outside possession, which set up their forward line as Jones and Norton provided excellent targets. And Hines, I've really liked him. I said he was one of the few positives of the last months. And again, he's just drifted forward, kicked a couple of goals. He will be invaluable if the Dogs hope to get another thing, because I think they just need that drifting forward option that can take a mark. Because again, they were just getting no output from the players below them. Again, Melbourne's defense looked unders. Once Turner especially went forward, and Lever couldn't roam around loose as Karma, Selwood, and O'Donnell were just racking up solid intercepts and keeping the Melbourne forward line at least busy on the lesser entrants. Gawn took a forward full advantage of the lack of English, and Petty was the shining light up forward. But there was just no real spark from Melbourne. It was a bit of a flat performance. Which was, again, concerning, as the loss all but confirmed that they're playing the wildcard match. Had confirmed, I wrote that when it was still technically up in the air.
Yes.
As for the Bulldogs, they haven't been in huge form this last month, but at least with the forward line injuries, they have found a few more options that will set them some extra goals. But again, the big one that you'll talk about after we talk about, vibes and specific players is if Aaron Norton can't survive this shortened turnaround, we know that the next best is a very steep drop-off and would have to pull a game out of nowhere to pose a threat. Or the player coming in, whether that be... I've forgotten their names now. Like, one's Croft, who I think...
Yeah, one would be Jordan Croft.
The other ones.
I don't know who the other ones would be.
Yeah, I mean, there was one that was chucked around, but again, a bit of basically a beanpole. Just put them in their forward line. Not much
with
goals in the
with the fact that like I think the Dogs have done well to adapt without Sam Darcy for most of the season. But when Norton's been out, it's been really difficult for them to find any sort of potency like in the air. At ground level, I think they're doing great. Like I think they have a lot of players that can actually really help them at ground level. But just trying to get that out of the air, especially when you have to contend with someone like Max Gawn. And Disco Turner, Jake Lever has actually had a fairly decent season. They've got a lot of really strong defenders that can just easily handle anything that's thrown at them, at least in the air. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens if Norton doesn't pull through.
Yeah, because again, like, honestly, I'm legitimate when I say this. I would have rather Bontempelli be injured for a elimination game than Aaron Norton. If you're going to pick one, again, with the team as it is, if Darcy was there, it changes things. Like,
Yeah.
I've got a lot of respect for Ed Richards. I think he's had a pretty fantastic season, all things considered. So, you know, as I said, the fact that I'm willing to make that statement and not even be ironic about it, you know, yeah, as I said, in terms of just your next available player, it's just such a big gap. And it's been proven, it's not just a few games where that's happened, you know. The games where they haven't played really well is when Norton's been out or there's been a significant thing with, I still forget who the other one is, but, you know, Croft and whoever else.
There's definitely someone else aside from Croft, yeah. But, like, it's...
Yeah.
And then it comes to the decision of, like, do you throw Rory Lobb forward every now and then? Or do you... But you would imagine you'd want to...
He loves been having to play ruck.
That's true. Like, he has been everywhere this season. But it's like, ideally you want to keep him in defense.
If you were going to chuck anyone down there. But then, yeah, you're taking away... You're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah. But I mean, with no Van Rooyen, that does open up an option to be able to swing someone forward from the Dogs' defense. But again, like, they still have to contend with Petty, and Fritsch, you know, and like some of the other players that are like really difficult to get a hold of.
Are you? The Western Bulldogs are playing Collingwood next week.
Oh yeah, they are. Right, sorry. Well, I mean, whoever
I know.
Whoever comes up against Melbourne, being Carlton, like they
yeah. That is like Melbourne. Options. Yeah, Melbourne. I think the good thing is Melbourne still scored 87. Again, Bulldogs' defense isn't that good, but it's going to be a harder task to get that output with just Harrison Petty on, you know, Carlton's defense. Because again, Wiedering at least show that he can run with. He'll probably play close, and they're going to get some other intercept generation. And it's going to be a bit harder. You know, as I said, the swing of this has changed a lot of how I think. Like Melbourne, I would have been fairly confident that would, you know, I honestly think Melbourne. I know it's ironic saying this, but I would have been confident before this round saying, oh, Melbourne would be the Western Bulldogs if they drop down, and you know, Collingwood would probably get one over Carlton. But because it's actually swung, I think that the likelihood of both Western Bulldogs and Carlton winning have risen dramatically. So
I'll be honest, we'll talk about this a little bit more when we actually preview the games. But like I was kind of already leaning towards the Dogs and Carlton winning the wildcard matches, and we'll go into more detail as to why when we get around to it. But yeah, just a little bit more on this game. Like it is going to be a tough ask without Norton, but I think Artie Jones has done some fantastic work this season. He showed a lot in this game.
Yeah,
Riley West is probably my favorite Dogs player at the moment. I think he has done some fantastic work.
It's just that forward pressure.
Yeah, and then obviously
Bulldogs love a bit of forward pressure.
You know, the Bond coming back after having a week off due to having a kid. He is now officially a first-time dad. You know, he looks great. Libba is still giving it his all. I'm still surprised his body's keeping up with him, I'll be honest. Like there's Matt Kennedy is doing some fantastic work this season as well. Like the Dogs are really, really threatening right now. And whilst I don't think they're like the dark horse of the finals, I think Melbourne and maybe Carlton could actually be that. I definitely think they could. It'll be very interesting to see what happens going up against Collingwood.
Yeah, I don't know. I still think they're a bit variable, but yeah, it is what it is. But you know, we'll see. Again, against Melbourne, like they definitely proved themselves, and again, it's just a question of that. Whether that uptick in the forward line was just against a Melbourne team struggling to defend at the moment, or whether it's signs. But again, if they keep Norton, I would say that's feasible that they can bring it on to next week. And
absolutely.
Melbourne, they've just got to, I guess work a bit more on basically just if they are going to be that defensively vulnerable, how to stop those entries, because there's going to be some pretty good forward half teams, even if they beat the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Carlton next week.
Yes. On the injury side of things, Matt Jefferson for the Demons came off with a knee injury, and Aaron Norton obviously with the ankle. We've kind of been dancing around it that whole time. If he gets up for it, great. If he doesn't, it is a big concern going up against Collingwood. We'll talk about that a bit later. All right, jumping over now to our Saturday night game over at GMHBA Stadium, where the Cats hosted the Tigers with a 57-point margin. You kind of expected nothing less. Geelong did win out 13-133 to 11-10-76.
We'll probably cruise through these next two, because again, both were very similar in terms of the structure.
Yep.
But again, pretty much Cats got into a really good lead by cashing in some poor Tigers ball years. They scored almost all their points off turnover. While the Tigers did slowly link up better, and they made the most of their minor stoppage win, it was pretty clear that Geelong sort of put the cue in the rack. Taranto pulled off yet another mammoth performance. Again, he's probably, one of those all-Australian squad, maybe a bit unlucky. He's played a very solid year. But yeah, as I said, it was good because he was solid when the Cats were dominating too. But the likes of Smith, Manor, Dempsey, and the half-forward, half-mid version of Dangerfield just had it a bit too easy. Tigers offered very little resistance in slowing down the Cats on the outside. And Cameron, he played as a defender, which was pretty wild. Smothered Sanderson Ryan until he moved off him, and he got some junk time goal. But I didn't see it. I just think that's a pretty... I mean, he has played defence before, but you get Jeremy Cameron back. He's got a bit of niggle probably still, and you're like, just play as a defender. She'll be right. I was like, oh, okay, I guess.
Yeah, they were probably just trying to work him into the game a bit slowly, just because of him returning from injury. But it was a very interesting start to the game to have him back down there. But yeah, no, you're right. Tim Taranto doing absolutely everything he could to give the Tigers any sort of edge. He was very much our best player by far. I would say Jack Ross probably followed up behind him. I think when Ross hasn't been injured, I think he has been one of our best players and probably our most improved player this season, which I'm very, very happy about. I think players like Patrick Rechko, the Patrick Rechko revenge game, as this was funnily dubbed. Yeah. I think he had a decent performance. I think he was getting tagged a little bit, only 18 touches in this game. Before 17 meters gained, 90% time on ground. I thought he did a decent job. Nankervis, it was an interesting little rock matchup between him and Mitch Edwards. So you can't really complain too much about that. Mitch Edwards, obviously a much younger rock. Mitch Edwards is, but has had a really solid season. Yeah. Kane McAuliffe, was good to see him back in. Had a fairly solid outing. But yeah, otherwise I didn't actually see too much of this game overall. I'm just glad we come out of this game with no injuries, for one. And two, that it looked like that we weren't just going to give up and roll over. It did look like we were doing our best to bring the fight every single quarter. And I can at least be proud of that.
Yeah, well, as I said, technically you did lose someone. I'll let you go through it. But as I said, you know what? I'm taking it over. I'm doing the injuries today.
Go for it.
Jack Henry. Sore ankle.
Karma. I just lost your camera.
Wow.
Well, that's instant karma. Instant karma.
Is it bad?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Jack Henry, sore ankle. Sam Banks, elevated heart rate. I think I made this joke last week, but probably the only person on that ground that have an elevated heart rate. I don't think that there was much tension in this game, and it was just a result that happened. But I mean, Richmond did get absolutely spanked, just comprehensively beaten.
Yes.
Which
to be expected. Geelong needed to lock up a top 6 spot to avoid wildcard. They did that. They were always going to do that. Whether by how much was always the question. I'm just glad we didn't give up. We actually tried to put out a heartfelt contest. I'm glad Sam Banks is also confirmed okay from his elevated heart rate. Thankfully, nothing major. He's all good to go. But now the boys get their off-season time, and then they'll hopefully. I'm very curious as to what happens in terms of our list building.
The pickup. Yeah, because again, you're now into a season where you've got a fresh. Because again, the injury Tigers Well, last year, yeah, well, going into this year,
It was not good.
Again,
but we're
no,
on
it was not
a
good, but a
better
lot of
track
those,
record in terms
yeah,
of
a lot of
injuries.
those injuries bled into this current season,
Mm.
whereas there shouldn't be as many of that for that. So yeah, this is a preview yourself, especially for Uze, because then you start getting a bit, a bit raising the
Well,
question
we'll
considering
definitely
his poor record.
yeah,
But
we'll definitely talk more about this when we get
yeah,
into the off
exactly.
season. But it's like,
But it's not a bad
no
place to
not
leave
at all.
the season, I guess.
I in terms of what we had to deal with injury wise, I'm still fairly happy with a lot of what I saw. I could very much see a team plan, what kind of structure we actually want to work with. The sort of players we're building around. I can very much see the plan that Uze is trying to build. We just don't have the personnel out there because half of them are injured. We're working through that. Thankfully, the only injuries that are actually on our injury list were like the season ending, like the long-term season ones anyway. So by the time like January hits and they start to go hard in the preseason, we should have all of them back, and hopefully we'll have a full fit list at least to start the season. It'll be nice.
It'll be Gibcus. That's most
Gibby.
Question mark.
Gibby is the big one. 2 ACLs.
Yeah.
And still a little bit of a concern around it. Like they did go easy with him getting those couple of games like a couple months back, just to try and like see where his fitness is really at an AFL level. But I'm glad that they did take the conservative approach to try and get him a full preseason in this season. But yeah, like Geelong tick the boxes that they need to tick. They get the week off. Probably come in fit and firing for whoever they have to face out of the winner of, I think, the first wildcard game. I think they have to get either Melbourne or...
Oh, no, it's based on seeds, so...
Is it?
It's like the NBA Finals,
okay,
to where the highest rank will take 6th.
Well, I'm not currently looking at the ladder, so I'm going to quickly bring that up on my phone. So essentially, if the Dogs win, they'll play the Dogs. If Melbourne win, they'll play Melbourne. If Collingwood win, they'll play Collingwood. Provided Melbourne lose. No, sorry. Actually, it doesn't matter. As long as it's pretty much between Melbourne and the Dogs, who Geelong will face. Purely because of the fact that obviously if Collingwood lose, it means Melbourne win.
Yeah, exactly.
So
well, they just get anyway. We'll figure it out. But the point is, I can't actually figure it out without it in front of me. I'm just one of those poor visualizers. But basically, Geelong get the weaker of the seeds that get through. Weaker? Wait, where'd they finish? I've forgotten now.
5th. So yeah, they'll play whoever finishes 8th.
Yeah, they'll beat the weaker. So it's either going to be Collingwood or Carlton.
It could. Well, if the Dogs lose, it obviously it won't matter. Yeah, it'll either be Collingwood or Carlton, and Adelaide have to face either Melbourne or the Dogs.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes
No. Wait.
It's confusing.
No. Melbourne and Western Bulldogs can win separately. So it's either they can't face Melbourne, they can face the Western Bulldogs, or Collingwood or Carlton.
Yes. Oh yeah, because Melbourne are a game and a half ahead. Yes. So as long as Melbourne win, they have to face the Crows. Then obviously if they lose...
if Melbourne win, they face Carlton. Or Carlton or Western Bulldogs. Whoever wins that game.
It's confusing.
If Melbourne win. If they lose, they can face Collingwood. Or unless Carlton win, in which case they would face Carlton.
This feels really confusing for no reason.
It's simple! AFL approved simple fun for
the AFL believe it to be simple, therefore it must be simple.
It's not. Exactly, and anything otherwise will result in a fine.
Alright, enough of that. Let's jump over now to our last Saturday night clash over at the Adelaide Oval. Tex Walker's final game at the Adelaide Oval, in fact, in front of our home crowd. And with a 56-point margin, the Crows did take it home for him. 24-13, 157 to 15-11, 101.
A regular season.
Yes.
They'll still host a finals. But yeah, early season goal blitz by Tex Walker. He was keen to rest his old man body an extra week. He was not wanting to somehow get below Melbourne, which I still think was possible. I can't quite.
It was still possible. They needed to win to hopefully dodge. Actually, I think by the time that Melbourne lost, I think it was kind of already locked in. Because I think they're at a percentage.
I'm not doing lagged permutations now.
We're not going to take a look at it now. It's
After
fine.
all that.
It's fine.
Anyway, they like Geelong, got an early park bus. Rankin took this time to get the second best quarter of AFL football in champion data this year, behind Jordan Dawson's epic against the Bulldogs that he had earlier on the season. So again, he has had a mammoth back half. He has had put some insane numbers up. Where Jake Singer, again, as we mentioned earlier, put up his mercenary price with 6 goals. As we mentioned, he's sort of leaving the Giants. Best thing for Adelaide as well, apart from obviously winning, was getting some back half movement. Kahan as well has cemented his spot in the halfback line before finals as another mid-season draft success. Likely joining Beattie and Fitzgerald in the draft season pickups, who are probably going to be playing finals. Fitzgerald, you would almost think so, and Beattie, you would say, more than likely. The way he played in Hawthorn's game. We'll discuss that later.
I'm very impressed with Kahan and just how he kind of instantly slot into this team. It's not necessarily it was the spot that they were necessarily missing via personnel. I think they were missing it mostly due to injury. But he managed to kind of fit in, and they just haven't. Yeah, he just hasn't missed a beat at all. It's very impressive.
Yeah, man. Even in this game, he outpossessed Wayne Millier. He again in the back half has sort of been easing back into it. Again. Really, really solid player in terms of the whole year. But so again, that's so solid. Not really anything negative, except for a minor injury. But again, as completed performances you can pretty much get, and absolutely brutal by Zak Rankin in the first. By a lot of players in the first half. They really wanted to get it done. The Giants, they got some junk time goals. They'll be happy with some performances. But, as I said, they've got to retool. But again, the Giants have always been they've never really had enough players on this back end of the season to be consistent. They have taken some big scalps. But again, we're talking about when the forward line clicks up and all that. And, it's going to be interesting because their ability to do it next year will probably change a bit. But, they've found some players, but it's all about giving some of these players some more competition while they get those big names back from injury, especially around that centre bounce. So, as I said, not much to say apart from that in terms of long term. But, Adelaide, again, probably not people's favourite to go all the way and all that, but they do have some good aspects. They are very, if they get the ball in their forward line, they are one of the hardest teams to defend.
Oh yeah.
I think their defense has taken a step back, and their back half ball movement probably is one of the reasons for it. But if they get the ball forward, if they dominate a game out the center, then any team will be in a bit of danger. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, this when they're on, they're definitely one of the most threatening teams in this finals campaign, along the likes of Freo and Brisbane. Their forward line.
You don't want to say that about any finals team. But they have. Each of
these teams have different things about them that are somewhat better than others. But when it comes to the lethality between midfield to forward line, I think the Crows are right up there. Yeah. It's very
one
scary.
Of the more efficient teams once the ball goes in their forward 50. So
yeah, absolutely. And again,
league entry, so watch out.
Again, you've got Thilthorpe, you've got Fogg, you've got Tex, you've got Rochelle,
you've got Keys,
Ben Keys, and then obviously you've got Rankin, Miller, Kahan, who can also push up. There are
Rankin with a lazy 4 goals, even though he was majoritively midfield.
Jordan Dawson, their captain, they have, and then you've got Cumming, You've got Peatling. They've got all of these players. Some a little more underrated than others. Like, even though Peatling has had a lot more of the limelight, I think this season, I think he's he's had a really, really fantastic season. Like, again, I've mentioned this when we first started the podcast. He was one of the players that I really kept an eye on at GWS before he came over to the Crows, and to see his journey has been really, really good. But yeah, like they are very dangerous, and I don't think. Oh, actually, interesting question. This is probably a question more for like useless AFL stats, but like, is this one of the first times that two players with the same last name that are unrelated on different teams are injured in the same match?
Probably not, but I mean, like, it is notable. I did notice that earlier.
It is very interesting. Zak Taylor with a hamstring injury and Sam Taylor with concussion. I don't know the severity of the hamstring. It could make a difference. It could not. He's a defensive player, right? Zak Taylor?
No. Forward.
Oh, forward?
Forward pocket sort of player.
Oh, yeah. So like
Ben Keys, but more tackle pressure.
Okay. So it could make a minor difference in terms of the pressure rating up forward, but it'll be interesting to see who they fill the slot with if he is out for longer than 2 weeks.
He's a fringe player, up and coming, mind you. I think it's third year maybe.
Oh yeah, so still quite young. But yeah, unfortunate end to the season for Sam Taylor. But he is one of the better. One of the better. Ended, is it? Well, yeah, the Giants aren't playing finals.
Oh, sorry, I was still on Zak Taylor.
No, I'm on Sam Taylor now.
No, definitely ended for Sam. Unless he switches. Never had a postseason switch before.
Is an unfortunate season end to end with concussion.
Yeah.
But with the Giants needing to retool, and we know he's one of the more dependable defenders in the competition. So it'll be interesting to see if there are any major changes to their backline structure. Like, is Licalier one of those players who still wants to move?
They have to move him on. They'll stick with their defense and work forward.
I imagine it'll be like getting the injuries back. We'll talk about it again. We'll talk about this more in the offseason. But like, it'll be more focused on getting their injuries back in the midfield and having to restructure their forward line. I think will be the two key areas that they'll work on the most.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Surprisingly, one of the more exciting games in this round of footy, considering it was basically a dead rubber, a fight for not the wooden spoon in terms of the Bombers, but the Bombers were hosting Port Adelaide at Marvel Stadium.
Yeah.
And with a 10-point margin right down to the wire. That final quarter was absolutely nuts. Port Adelaide did win out 16-9, 105 to 14-11, 95. When you win, what is it, like 7 center clearance, pretty much goals from center clearance bounce?
I think it was 7
in a row.
I think it was 7 center clearances and 7 center clearances in a row for 4 goals or 5.
I think it was 5. Like,
it was 5 bounces, center bounce
in
overall.
one quarter.
Anyway.
Like that, it was nuts efficiency to really pry it from the Bombers. But like, what a game this was, surprisingly.
Oh yeah, and look, the sad thing is like this was Solomon's like best game. Like, yeah, they beat the Giants, who were like pretty dismal, to be honest.
Yeah, like again, how can you beat? We talked about this, but like, how can you beat Freo and then lose to Essendon?
Exactly. Like, Port, they had some flaws, especially in the first quarter. They had some terrible ball use, and Essendon probably could have capitalized a bit more. But Port were just firing like so uncharacteristically accurate. 69, Georgiadis, I don't think missed for the entire day, or he only got one behind. One or the other. Either way, did really well. 5-1. I'll take that. And again, with this team, both teams 17th and 18th in this round, being in age and experience, with the Dons being younger but Port less experienced. As I said, this was not the cleanest, but honestly, the last half even was pretty clean, or as clean as it could be. Again, should have capitalized in the first quarter. 2-5 of 9 shots, let Port off the hook as Port Adelaide eventually stopped turning the ball over in their back half. They were still exposed, however. Like, the problem is they both had bad ball use. Again, Bergman had a bit of a shocker. Essendon too, Caldwell, was particularly bad for an experienced player. But as I said, overall though, you know what? The skills weren't that bad. It was just the random error here and there. And again, Port's backline is really what suffered from most of this contest in terms of injuries, with Nate Caddy 5 goals in a row to get them the halftime lead and momentum, with seemingly no one able to defend the young key live wire. Despite Stons racking up the score, it would be 5 goals from centre bounce, as he said, in the last quarter, with 3 coming after Essendon goals, which would kill the Dons' chances. Jace Burgoyne absolutely dominated. Brody assisted handily, a rare Will Brody sighting in a previous self-performance. And despite a decently tackling game from McGrath and Setterfield, it was really their positioning that let them down. Like, as I said, I'll mention it now. Like, Merritt playing off halfback and creeping forward, I think in terms of overall field position, really solid. It was the best non-Merritt in the midfield game that he's played this year. And I do understand not playing him as much in the centre, as he is all but gone from Essendon. You would think,
that's
with the way that they've approached it.
Going to be an off-season conversation that we will take a look at.
But it's like, if they even were able to mediocrely defend the centre bouncers, they would have won this game. But they didn't. Dons win the spoon, and Port at least got to win a game after a pretty bruising month of football. You know, it was just, it was a shame, because as I said, for all intents and purposes, you know, Essendon should have won. Even a tiny bit of controversy, I saw it a bit at the time, but didn't quite register. But one of the bowl-ups against, you know, in that period was so shallow, and it favoured Port in that particular one, which ended up being a goal. So even a bit of bad luck going their way. Again, should have been recalled by the umpire. It was a bit of a blemish there. Otherwise, the umpiring was pretty fine.
It is unfortunate that, you know, Butters couldn't get up for a farewell game, because this would have been a really interesting game for him to kind of make his last.
Yeah. I mean, Butters probably would have had a minute separate, but I think if Butters don't get there, I don't think Jace Burgoyne gets 30 disposals and 8 tackles,
very true.
2 goals. Again, you've got to really be like, okay, we've lost Butters, but Jace, and again, I just really haven't would have thought he would have been an inside midfield, but we've put him in there and it's just worked, and it's only really probably been a move out of necessity, but he has had a bit of those attributes. Like, he was always a decent ball winner. His ball use could sometimes use a bit of work, and is a bit, I wouldn't say he's a pressure machine, although, you know, 8 tackles. I think his defensive game has lifted as he's gone in the inside midfield. Maybe it's just the...
He's like a Shea Bolton type of player. Like,
yeah, I would say that. Probably a bit more hard enough than Shea Bolton.
I would say a little bit more. He has a bigger body shape, I think, than Bolton has, which lends to
Jace is surprisingly tall.
Like,
I think
Jace
is
pressure.
like 187.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure Shea Bolton's smaller than that. But yeah, no, like this was a really, really good game from Burgoyne. Like, this was the type of game that you pretty much kind of like you want to see from these young developing players, especially when you have to be kind of thrown to the wolves in a midfield that doesn't have that much experience. Like, you're only really, like, it's really only Ollie Wines that's the veteran player in that sort of regard. And Jordan Sweet could be a little bit of a veteran at this point, just because he's been leading
in terms of games.
But in terms of like leading,
fantastic back half of the season.
Yeah, like leading from the front in terms of his ruck and his ability to play around the ground. Like, I think that lends a lot to what he's been doing. The fun thing that we mentioned last week was the Vicentini brothers and whether they would get to play on each other. They did. And even if it was brief, it was good to see.
They did. And that was good. The other matchup, too, that I thought was the commentator's nightmare. Do you want to have an attempt at this? Because I think I've got it right.
You put it in the Discord, didn't you? Let me find it really quick.
Yeah. But yeah, Dante DeStefani unfortunately had the job on Nate Caddy early, and he got absolutely towed up. He is not a defender,
I
but
found it.
I
Okay.
appreciate the effort.
Kondogiannis and Anastasopoulos.
Yeah, Max Kondogiannis and Tom Anastasopoulos. Which
Are they both
weirdly,
Greek?
like Anastasopoulos, you want to add that extra T, and Kondogiannis, I want to add that extra N. So you have to like stop yourself from doing that. But yes, both Greek heritage names. I think Kondogiannis is more direct Greek heritage than Anastasopoulos.
Is more heritage.
When I say more direct, I mean like I think Kondogiannis' father was Greek, and I think Anastasopoulos just has it in his veins.
Yes.
Or at least I couldn't see any articles that say direct heritage. So again, not saying that I defied what they view as heritage, but you know, good to see the representation though.
Yes, it is.
You know,
we love a diverse sport.
Exactly. So, and yes, as I said, which Maxwell did a fairly good job of. I think he was the one that made me think there's an extra N in Kondogiannis. Kondogiannis, yeah. So, yeah. Oh, now I'm getting in my own head. But again, apart from that, look, you know, both games had players that you know have been a bit quiet in other areas bob up. Angus Clark had a really solid game. He's only been able to play a few games this season, but kicked 3 goals too. Took advantage of that. Archie Perkins, again, someone who's been a bit up and down in terms of how Essendon fans have viewed him, but played a pretty solid game. And as said, again, both Andrew McGrath and Ollie Wines both had really good games, but yeah, their bowl efficiency at times. Well, it's weird because like Andrew McGrath was technically efficient with his kicks, but they're very safe. He's always been that sort of player, and they need a bit more. With Merritt going, they need to find someone that's a bit more. I think still McGrath's a lot better suited as a halfback than he is in the guts. So, yeah, as I said, Essendon will tinker a bit, but at least in the last game, like they had legitimate excitement too. So, again, it's just a bit of a shame they didn't get the win because, like, stats said they deserve it. But at the end of the day, Port kicked more than Essendon, which I have been told is what wins you a game of football. So,
very true.
Sucks to be them.
It does suck to be them. As much as I did tip them, and I was kind of really rooting for them, just because I think it would have been funny. I'm very glad that we weren't the ones that finished 18th, because honestly, I don't. In terms of what I've kind of seen out of like the draft, out of the upcoming, I don't think like between pick 1 and pick 2 there isn't much difference, which is perfectly fine by me.
This is like a side tangent. I really think we need to bring back more, not shame for the wooden spoon, but like, as a club, hating the fact that you win the wooden spoon, because the too many fan base is like, oh, number 1 draft pick, oh, let's tank. And it's like, no, you want that spoon to be a blight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you want to win as few spoons as possible. Like, you know, the difference between second last and last isn't that massive.
No.
Like, yeah, you can say, like, oh, the difference between you know, Harley Reid or whatever. But like, again, Finn O'Sullivan, I think it was. But, you know, it's like, so what? You know what I mean? It's like, there are other players. You find gems in the rough, and like Brisbane can like pick Logan Morris at 33 and, you know, get him to be one of the best key forwards in the competition.
Sam Lawler, Jagger Smith. Like, Sam Lawler doesn't go through the injuries that he had. Like, they're both elite talents. Like, there's a very minor difference.
Exactly. And it's more about the culture and building up. And like Essendon have a lot more to build.
They have
like they've
a lot of issues to work on.
Yeah. But at least hopefully, and with the soft announcement that it is going to be, what's his name? The Sydney dude, Mark McVeigh.
Yes.
We will be probably making the thing next week when it's formally announced.
Yes.
You know, hopefully that might clear the air for as much as you can have clear air in Bondsland.
Well, considering Essendon is right by the airport, the air's probably not that clear. But anyway, Peter Wright did suffer a knee injury in this game. I think on the minor side of things, so a decent preseason will be all right for him. But now we jump over to our second last Sunday game, the one that tied to our first bit of news and story at the beginning of the episode, the Sydney Swans taking on North Melbourne in a doubleheader at the SCG. and with a 53-point margin, the Swans did win out 17-21, 123 to 10-10-70.
Yeah, and as I said, it is impossible to talk about this game without talking about what went on the week. And I don't want to go into too much detail because as I said, you don't want out of all this to say, heroic or brave, because again, they dealt with a situation that impacted people outside of all this more heavily than what will impact them.
Exactly.
And that needs to be said and cleared. However, in terms of being able to face player adversity in terms of, people going in and out of the team, it was really solid performance. All their players that they brought in terms of Sheldrick, Cunningham, Rowbottom, Hanley and Cleary had a good amount of attacking play. All of them fine. Their depth seemed to not manage too much. And unfortunately, North Melbourne just ended their campaign with a whimper. We thought that they might be a lot closer. I tipped them. I think you were split. You changed one of your tips in the work comp to make sure you secured the win, but didn't do so in our competition.
Yes, so I lost due to margin, which I probably should have changed it. I'll be honest. It would have been nice to actually have the win in our comp after being at pretty much at the bottom of the ladder for the entire times that we ran it. But in my work comp there is money involved, so I was like, I need that one first.
Yeah.
Of which I don't even know if I've actually officially won.
Coward tipping.
I don't even know if I've officially won because I don't know if we're tipping for finals. And nothing has been said from the people that are actually running the comps. So I am waiting to hear on that. So we'll see.
Honestly, see. Side note, round 24 should be a locked in before. If I was running a tipping competition, lock it in at once teams are out. Maybe have a caveat for Thursday because Friday teams wouldn't be announced yet. But lock it in so you won't be a coward like Blaze being like, oh, they're gonna tip this, so I'm gonna try and match them like a coward.
Hey, look,
I don't like.
I metagamed it because I knew he was a Sydney supporter. That's as far as I went.
The rules allowed it, so it's whatever. But and money on the line. Anyway, I'm just staring you because there's not much to talk about.
I know.
North returned to abysmal levels of transition defense. Got smacked in center clearances and normal clearances. Won't win the Rising Star Award, but the 42nd pick of the draft, Billy Cootie, is looking to play an important role in the finals as he was amongst Sydney's best today. He has really been, hits the scoreboard, offensive-minded winger, and it's do they need more of it? No, but dang.
Hey, when you have Errol Golden, there's nothing wrong with having someone on the opposite side to complement him.
Yeah, I mean, they've already got Jai Sarong, and it's okay, we can just put Jai Sarong as a forward if we need him. They'll have some finessing to do, depending on how they want to run their forward line. But they've just, again, when you take those 5 players out and still have options, it does say a lot to Sydney's list development. To be able to have that flexibility.
Yeah.
So again, as I said, again, it's still a situation which is partially, what they're going to have to deal with, and they're going to have to approach it that way. And it will be impressive if they're able to get finals wins or even take it to the grand final if by miracle they made it. You wouldn't expect it. It is a tough ask when you've got more complete teams. But at the same time, I do think Sydney will be trying to at least give it a red hot crack.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially because they do get that home final for finishing second. It definitely does favour them to that home ground advantage, at least for the first game. And again, they've got the double chance as well. So, and even if they were to go out in straight sets, hypothetically, I don't think it's the be-all and end-all. Especially with the players that they've brought in, they've shown that
probably
their
still
depth,
another year, Charlie.
Yeah, and they've shown that they've got the depth to still absolutely compete. Regardless of what happens outside of the world. I'd say, outside of their 4 walls. And
that's the thing. Good list management is okay, we want to have some of the best players in the league. We want to have a few Australians and all that, but we've got to make sure that if any injuries occur or if you need to go to the next step down, you're not too impacted. And this is an extreme version of that, but they have proven some resilience.
And that's why they've stuck with players like Peter Lathams as a backup for Brodie Grundy. He's very serviceable and very dependable when he's had to come in. Not obviously the greatest ruckman or tall option in
No.
the world. But
Another one they called in too. They've called up Willie Green, who has done pretty solid.
yeah, so like they have options, and that's serviceable enough talent to probably take it to these other top 8 teams. But in that finals intense environment, it'll definitely be like a make or break sort of difference. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Dane Rampy was fined $2,000 for striking Jack Darling. But before we move on to our final game of the round, I want to talk about the Coleman medal because it is official that Charlie Curnow has won it for the 3rd time.
Well, technically there was 2 medals confirmed, one an official medal, one an unofficial medal. But yes, Jack, again, first club to win a Coleman, especially when it is hard as a key forward to adjust to a new side. I was critical to how they would approach building him in, but I think they've been quite good at like incorporating Charlie Curnow while keeping their identity. I have to give Sydney a lot of credit. I thought I was a bit suspect on the way that they'll coach last year, but like the way I see it now is that, they probably were just building a base to maybe some more normal football. But with what they've been able to bring in, as I said, if they had that sort of plan, it's like, okay, we're going to make a few big splash moves, try and get some more consistency that way. You see the end result of it now.
Yeah.
And as I said, Charlie Curnow, again, he's a player, his career could have ended like 5 years ago due to injuries. And now he's got a couple of Colemans. He's one of the more valuable key forwards. Again, it's always cross your fingers to whether he lasts the season, but they've been able to get the most amount of usage out of him. And he deserves a lot of plaudits for getting his body right for another Coleman year.
Yeah, absolutely. And funnily enough, 12 years ago was the last time a player won it after moving to a new club. Can you tell me who that player is?
Can I guess? So, 12 years ago, new club player. So what are we dealing with? 2014.
2014.
Ooh. Oh. With a Coleman.
Who won the Coleman in his first year at a new club. So he'd already played for an existing club before moving on.
Yeah, no, because it would have been Lance Franklin. Sure.
Yes, correct. It is Buddy.
I can't believe it took me that long.
2013 Premiership, paid big bucks, moved to the Swans in 2014, and won the Coleman medal that year.
For some reason, I thought that was 2013, but then I was.
I just find it funny that it's.
Hawks won their first.
I just find it funny that it's Victorian club moves to Sydney, wins the Coleman.
Yeah. So, it's sort of almost the opposite of how it initially happened. So,
And with he now joins like other players like Dunstall, Gary Ablett Senior, Matthew Lloyd, and Jack Riewoldt as 3-time winners. But there are only 8 other players above him that have won more than 3, being Dick Lee with 7, Gordon Coventry with 6, John Coleman himself with 5, Fred Fanning, Doug Wade, Peter Hudson, Tony Lockett, and Lance Franklin all with 4. But to talk about like the top 10 of the Coleman medals as a whole, thanks to Logan Morris kicking 8 goals in the final game of the home and away season, he finishes with 63. Charlie Curnow finished with 69. That's pretty nice. Ben King finishes 3rd on 60 goals. Jack Gunston with 59. Jai Amos with 58. Nick Watson 55. Pretty impressive for a prominent small forward to hit that top 10. I think the last time we really saw a prominent small forward was probably Eddie Betts, I would say.
Jamie Elliott last year.
Oh yeah, Jamie Elliott also as well. I keep forgetting he's classified as a small forward. Josh Tracy on 54, Mitch Georgiadis with 51, Charlie Cameron with 50, and Jake, after having a kind of season last year, Charlie Cameron really had a really solid season this year, and Jake Waterman with 49.
Shall we move on to the last?
We shall. We've got one more game to go before that's the home and away season done and dusted. And we head over to the West, where the West Coast Eagles hosted Hawthorn. Hawthorn are looking to solidify their top 4 position, of which they do with a 62-point margin, 16-11, 107 to 6-9, 45.
Yeah, well, this was a sadistic game to watch because, again, the only relevance really was, once Eagles were like pretty much behind the 8 ball, which they were fairly early. yeah, you just sort of wanted that 100-point smashing to be or approach it to be like, oh, a bit of tension. But yeah, I mean, look, there were signs that it might happen, but if it wasn't for a rare rainy day in Perth, honestly, they could have got there because Gunston was near undefendable in the first quarter in the dry. I did get a couple of more goals in the wet to add to his pretty good game. I think he got like 6 goals or something like that. It's pretty good. Gunston did lead the average for goal scoring with 3.5, which is above Charlie Curnow's 3.1. But obviously played 17 games this year.
Yes.
So again, I think that should be noted that Gunston, really, really fantastic year as well. Talking about great day at the very least, Milan Murdoch was really all the Eagles had to hold their head on early, as they were quite dismal and only made a minor comeback on the scoreboard, even when the Hawks. But that only happened when the Hawks were resting their players, as the margin they needed was pretty much out of reach by three-quarter time.
Mm-hmm.
If they had a fast start, it was like technically plausible, but Eagles got an early goal and it just made math a bit too hard. And it was like, you know what? You know, they arrested Nick Watson, I think, at that point. He got soft put on the bench. I think
he had a minor injury concern when they rotated him onto the bench. And they did technically rule him out of the game, I believe. But I think it was mostly precautionary, but he has been cleared and will be right to go in 2 weeks.
Yeah. I think someone else had a bit of that too. But again, in terms of things notable, which is not that much, Max Beattie looked really great. We mentioned him before, but you know, he had I think 3 goals as he ramped out in the half forward. And again, this is probably a team that could use another goal kicker, so really good sign. And Mitch Lewis, you know, as I said, Hawthorn really missing that key forward. Charles still sort of working. I think he did some good work, but again, I don't think the wet really suits him.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, Mitch Lewis was someone where he did 10 marks in a miserable day and 2 goals. Very, very solid. And the rest was pretty much normal. They had some really good players like Hardwick, I think, had a fantastic game.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Gunston, 5 goals, 1. Watson, 3 goals before being benched. Yeah, as I said, really good. But again, the Eagles were pretty miserable, really. You know, as I said, I guess it's funny, like Kelly had an okay disposals game. I think, you know, as I said, a lot of the centre bounces, they were pretty well beaten. And yeah, as I said, yeah, they just didn't really have much grunt. I think the day was just as miserable as the Eagles were. I guess probably you could say you might want to see more at home from them, but again, they're up against Hawthorn that really wanted to be lethal, and in the end, whilst they couldn't quite get it done, you know, as the Eagles were always going to be a bit up against it.
Yeah.
But yeah, as I said, much ado about nothing in the end.
Well, honestly, I think there is not an upside for the Eagles, but I think a strong upside for Hawthorn, and it's that they got some more experience at Optus prior to having to come back here. You know, in 2 weeks to face
maybe
Freo.
Book a longer hotel stay. Maybe try to sneak a few training sessions at Coburn Oval. Or
no, I'm pretty sure they went home to Victoria. But
yeah,
like, because at the time they wouldn't have technically known. Oh no, they would have known because they would have locked in top 4.
Yeah, they would have known, but like, you're not gonna stay.
No.
2 weeks.
But it's like you know, a lot of teams don't actually get to play Optus all that often, realistically. Because most of the time it's the teams from the West having to travel. So it does give Hawthorn a bit of extra time, you know, get a bit more of an understanding of the ground, and that really does go and lead into their favour to help them prep against Freo. On the West Coast Eagles side of things, there isn't really much to say about this game as a whole, but the one thing that I want to keep an eye on as we go into this offseason is who's going to win their best and fairest. Because I think they've had a lot of very interesting players throughout this season. Again, you know, players like Milan Murdoch, Tom McCarthy. Obviously, Harley Reid is a very notable one. Like, they've had a lot of players that have really shined this season.
It's weird.
Obviously, BJ Williams had a breakout year in terms of getting a lot better as a ruck. Really handled his own against some of the best this season. There's definitely quite a few options of like really good players to highlight that have come out of the West Coast Eagles this season.
Yeah, and even on the back half, you know, I know Tom McCarthy has probably been the most consistent in terms of possessions. He'll probably be like second and third for a lot of them. With Harley Reid featuring a lot more first, but probably a few games where he just flat out misses out. And then BJ Williams, like after round 6, he pretty much solidified and had some really huge games. He'll have a couple of Brownlow votes occasionally. But it'll be fun seeing players like Marcus Herbert come up for a few times. Probably Milan Murdoch, as he said, for this game. I'll give him like as maximum votes as he can for this game. But yeah, as I said, it'll be interesting. I think there'll be a bit more diversity in that, and I think that's something you want to see. But yeah, as I said, I think it's again, the Eagles improved from last year, which was fairly dismal, and seem to be going in the right direction. But
the question marks are mostly around their backline, but I think part of that is due to injury. Again, they had no Ginby, no Edwards. Their forward line is 100% worse. Again, they can't. The issue is that they can't rely on Waterman. Like he does some great work,
and they've got no ground.
They don't have no support for him. Really, is like the main issue. And like,
if the ball hits the ground, it's basically going out their defense.
Yeah, unless you have a player like Baker who's pushed up to be able to support. You don't really have anyone else kind of living around there.
Honestly, Baker's had a pretty.
He's had a very season.
It's been fairly.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think he's going back to back in the best and fairest.
No, I don't think so.
That's for sure.
Which is why I think the conversation is so interesting as to like players you can really highlight to come out of the system.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if Reid just won it.
Yeah,
depending on how skewed they are to best on ground. But if it's more even, if it's like fairly even, from first to second, then I do think Tom McCarthy adds to the mix.
Yeah, absolutely. On the injury side of things from this game, though, Brandon Starcevich did get a cut to the head. Again, you gotta protect the baldness. It is a lot harder to protect compared to having hair sometimes. But he's all right.
To the head
thankfully, it's not concussion or anything like that. He's had enough of them already, so thankfully he's all good. On the MRO side of things, Jai Newcomb was fined $1,000 for contact with an umpire. Brendan Starcevich was fined $1,000 for contact with an umpire. Bo Allen was fined $1,000 for other misconduct against Nick Watson. Probably a middle finger, I would assume. Something like that. I don't actually entirely know.
Weird, yeah.
And Harley Reid has been suspended for 2 matches for rough conduct against Jai Newcomb.
I mean, honestly, it's going to be a bit... I mean, they'll challenge it, but I think it's going to be a bit hard to get on with because it was a pretty big sling tackle. Basically grabbed him by the scruff of the neck, straight action to the ground.
Yeah.
Didn't get concussed, but it's very hard to argue against, a downward motion tackle with little protection. I mean, that's what the AFL wants to stamp out. And, as I said, I think it's good that this gets team match, even though there wasn't a direct concussion to come out of it. So, yeah, as I said, Reid has actually been a lot more reined in this year, and I've talked about a bit of his growth, but this was just a errant bit of technique, and he should hopefully learn from it. But it does sting, especially if, and the AFL does like to give a few softer games to teams like the Eagles to start the season.
Yes.
Actually, no, not the Eagles in recent histories, but they do like giving the bot for a bit of an easier run, so that's going to be a bit hard if they're going to do it without Hales, but we will see.
We will see. Before we move on to the wildcard round, I do just want to mention that the people that present the awards and stuff, or the awards like the medals and stuff for Grand Final Day have been announced, with Paul Chapman presenting the Norm Smith medal, the Jock McHale medal to be presented by Paul Roos, the Ron Barassi medal to be presented by Roger Dean, and Luke Hodge will be the Premiership Cup ambassador for this finals campaign. I do also want to mention, as we had mentioned at the start of the episode, that with the squad of 44 for the All-Australian being announced, we will do a bonus episode this week going through that full list, as well as who we think is going to be in the final selection, who missed out on the squad of 44, because there's probably players on our list that didn't even make it to the 44. I will be honest, I know there's at least one, because I put Billy Frampton in my list.
Yeah.
And we will also probably go through the final ladder and have a look at what we thought the ladder was going to be at the start of the season as well. Just as a kind of
nice
bit of a little filler as well, just to kind of just have a little bit more to talk about throughout this week because there has been a lot going
Yeah.
on. And then obviously
it's going to be like it's a good morsel like week, a bit of obviously exciting about football. There's only 2 games, but as I said, it's where we get excited about football.
Exactly right.
It's finals.
And then as we go into the finals series, we will also start to cover a little bit more of the AFLW as well as the off-season news that comes out over the next couple of weeks before the full off-season hits. So please come stay tuned and join us for all of that. All right, let's jump over now into our actual wildcard games, starting off with our first one to preview, a Friday night clash for Western Bulldogs and Collingwood at the MCG.
Yes, I had the wrong one loaded. For some reason, it's backwards on mine. Anyway, yes, it is short turnaround, which is going to be hard for the Western Bulldogs because, again, this is one where it's sort of, as I mentioned, going to have a huge swing in terms of ins and out. Again, with the way Collingwood's defense has been and what we've seen when it's an Aaron Norton-led attack, I do think that the Bulldogs will be able to outscore Collingwood. However, as I said, it is a huge drop-off and Wooders. And as I said, the midfield battle is going to be interesting. But again, Collingwood don't really care as much about stoppages. Again, they're an okay team at defending stoppages, not a good team at winning stoppages. But on the outside transition is that they make life hard on the back half. So that's going to be their biggest thing against the Bulldogs. I know the Bulldogs had a good last week, but again, it was up against Melbourne, who aren't really a transition stopping team. So this is where this is going to be the biggest bane against Collingwood. It's going to be able to get ball movement to complement their just grunt stoppage work. Because again, Collingwood, then they've still got Jeremy Howe and Frampton, and in stoppage play, they'll still be solid enough, especially for those hack sort of kicks in, assuming Jeremy Cameron, is still fit and firing. So yeah, as I said, I'd be tempted to. The Bulldogs is the fun option. Let's be real.
And the Bulldogs are the fun option, and that's why I want to go for them.
I don't think that they're sustainable. I don't think they've really proved themselves to be a deep finals threat, for me at least. This year, I think you're a bit more optimistic on them. However, against Collingwood, yeah, sure, I could believe that.
Yeah, the way that I see it is that they 100% can be Collingwood, but I don't see them winning the elimination final the week after. I will be honest. But I think just for this week, I think it's the fun option, and that's why I want to go for it. But yeah, no, you're right.
Last game too was really close too. 97 to 93. It was a very close contest. I think there was it was a late set of goals by someone. I think Collingwood came back very quickly after being behind or something like that.
I have a I
could quickly check.
Vaguely remember this. But yeah, no, it's a very interesting game to think about. Collingwood don't have a huge amount of losses at the moment on the injury side of things. Again, Pendlebury, if he is out, they know how to play without him. The only big quote unquote injury is probably still really Jamie Elliott. But they've had time to adapt without him for the time being. So it's that, and they've brought in some really young, great midfielders that have really built up their system in the second half of this season, as well as they're really talented veteran players like Beau McCreary, Isaac Quaynor, some really even Tim Membry has had a fairly decent second half. Up forward, they have some really decent options, so they will be very much a threat if they're able to get the ball on their terms. But I think the Dogs midfield is talented enough to kind of bounce back against
them a bit of edge.
And have that sort of edge against them. But I think all eyes are going to be on, obviously, Nick Dacos and probably Bontempelli, I would say, as the two big key players in this contest.
No, I just think either they'll get their way. Collingwood have a way of getting the ball forward without clearances. They do a lot of post clearance work.
They do.
But Bontempelli is obviously that good mix of he can win the raw clearance, he can get done in transition. As I said, they'll both have ways of getting the ball forward. It's just going to be how consistent they can be
I think that,
in setting their game plan.
and obviously the biggest swing for the Dogs is going to be whether Aaron Norton gets up.
Yeah, but I'm glad I have gone back to the timeline, and I should say it was Collingwood coming back late.
Okay,
They
I thought so.
almost came back. Will Lewis though was the one that we were meant to be. Well, the one I'd forgotten about.
That's right.
3 goals too against Collingwood. So maybe he is proven enough, at least for Collingwood. I don't think there's many games outside of that game.
If Norton doesn't get
very much
up,
beanpole status.
it'll be a Will Lewis, Jordan Croft forward line.
One of the two.
Well, they could bring in. Croft's already in. Like it could just be both.
Croft wasn't in, was he?
I might have missed last week. I can't remember. But like honestly, I don't see it being a bad thing if they're both in. Like I think the Dogs' smalls have enough talent to support them. It is going to be tough to win by the air, especially because Big Billy Frampton is a massive threat and has had such a good season. But I feel like having more hands in the air to kind of at least bring the ball to ground, if obviously marking is going to be a bit of a struggle, it's better than nothing.
I just don't think that Bulldogs have enough transition defense to not be efficient in their forward line. Like I'm going to say it, I'm ruling them out if Aaron Norton. Like I don't even like to be that dismissive, but from what I've seen, I would put the line through him.
Yeah, it's a tough ask.
No offense. Like again, we're talking about 2 very young players who are told. Like I don't mean to besmirch their talent and all that, but it is where it is. Where if you want to win a game now, you know, as I said, like they hopefully develop into wonderful players later down the line. This year isn't it though?
No.
And yeah, as I said, it's going to be you know, touch and go if Aaron Norton can't come up. But again, if he does, yeah, the Bulldogs, I mean, it's pretty much a 50-50 at that point. But yeah, I said, until then, I'm going to give the slight edge to Collingwood.
Yeah, if Norton's in, I want to give the edge to the Dogs. If he's out, I'm probably still going to go the Dogs just because I want them to win. But I imagine Collingwood will have much more of an advantage without him up in the forward line. But let's jump over now to probably a tougher ask of a game. Saturday night, same location, but 2 very different teams with the Demons and Carlton.
Yeah, well, I think this is the one where Melbourne probably wanted to avoid. Again, I think they could weed the Western Bulldogs. I know last week happened, but like, I think if things were on the line, I think they would be getting up. But Carlton, I don't know, because again, teams have scored relatively healthy from stoppage against them. Again, they've been one of the best score from stoppage teams, but they're up against a team that are only just behind them on season record. And when you go to the last, well, basically the Josh Fraser era, like really, really good. So again, it's really up to Carlton. Like if their ball use is okay, because Melbourne do love to score from turnover. They're going to be in with a really solid chance because again, Melbourne's defense isn't solid. They may or may not be missing Jake Lever for this game. He's got a bit of a toe concern. Probably will just play sore, but it's well noting. And yeah, as I said, it's going to be one of those things where, again, like Melbourne's midfield has been pretty good, but like Carlton's is a really flesh unit. So, again, Melbourne on the outside though, is still fairly solid. It's probably a fraction, above Carlton, you know, as I said, with, you know, a bit more reliable players with like, Ed Langdon, Kay Chandler when he plays a bit on the outside, all those sort of things. Windsor, it can be a bit up and down, but he's normally a solid contributor. And you know, that being said, Blake Acres has actually played all right the last few games. I just thought he would have faded out in existence, but you know, as I said, he's been in some important enough form. So again, it's like the more and more I think about it, it's the more
I genuinely think this is going to be a battle of the midfield.
Like, yeah, I don't know. I had to be like on the midfielder and like knee jerk after one bad performance against Melbourne and like Carlton being thing, but I think Carlton have earned the rights to be a decent enough tip in this one.
I agree. I mean, I don't know.
I just have a feeling.
Prior to going into this finals campaign, like I thought Melbourne was going to be the dark horse. But after seeing how Carlton has performed, especially against the teams, you know,
Yeah.
either around them or actually above them, they have 100% earned the right to be a fair tip. But I genuinely think this is going to primarily be a midfield battle. Because both teams operate very similarly. I think the only difference is probably Max Gawn, being the more experienced ruck, and the fact that like
Pitnet's had a solid year.
Pitnet has had a solid year. But again, it's Max Gawn. Like,
I know.
But yeah, like I like the look of both midfields so much, and I think they match up against each other so well. That it's all going to be one out of the midfield. Obviously, there are going to be moments from the back lines, from the forward lines, but from the raw grunt work and like probably the key area to watch from this game is going to be that midfield.
Yeah, to a degree. I sort of agree with you. I also think it's like going to be a lot of the fringe players, like how many can just provide those extra goals, because I think it's going to be a high scoring game.
If it's not a wet weather game, it'll be a shootout.
Oh yeah, for sure. I don't know about the weather.
I'll check the initial forecast just in case.
I mean, there'll be rain. It's Melbourne, but
15 degrees, top of 15 degrees, no forecasted rain.
Okay.
But anyway, this is a night game, so it'll probably be about maybe 12, 11 degrees.
Okay. But anyway, again, I feel like it's more. I don't know. I just have the gut feeling for Carlton, but maybe I've been on the text line with Rob a bit too much. Who is quite level-headed, my Carlton supporting friend. He has been burnt one too many times as a modern Carlton supporter. Hope is a dangerous thing for a Carlton supporter like me, as Lana Del Rey once said. So, as I said, but I mean, out on the outside, it should just be a fun matchup. And again, it is sort of a shame that one of these two teams will make an early exit, but that's what finals footy should be about. Again, as critical as we could be, at least this one is a very high stakes matchup. That should be an absolute cracker. I mean, both high stakes, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is. Yeah. But yeah, anyway. That's, I mean, obviously it's only 2 games to go through, but as I said, it should be an absolutely fantastic weekend. And obviously we're going to be fully fed because the women's will be playing, not alongside literally, but throughout the week. So
yes, absolutely.
We'll have our footy fix. Obviously they've cleared a bit of the air for the time slots for the night games. But yeah, as I said, it should be a interesting one.
Yeah. Just before we go, some of the qualifying and elimination finals have been confirmed. So I'll just quickly mention them here. Obviously Thursday night clash, Fremantle and Hawthorn at Optus Stadium, which is why I think that experience against the Eagles for Hawthorn will actually play into their favour a little bit. Geelong will face the lowest ranked finalist. From the wildcard round. It's still confusing. But that'll be the Friday night game at the MCG. Saturday afternoon game.
Could they be blazing?
It's irrelevant.
It's okay. It'll happen next week. We'll be able to tell you definitely.
Correct.
So,
Saturday afternoon clash at the SCG will be the Swans and the Brisbane Lions, and obviously the Crows Saturday night clash at Adelaide Oval will face the highest ranked wildcard winner. If Melbourne wins, it'll be confirmed Melbourne because they're currently a game and a half ahead anyway. But it's we will see. We will see what happens. But yeah, that brings us to the end of the episode and to the end of the home and away season of AFL. Thank you all so much for liking, commenting, subscribing, and just coming to hang out with us this week. Again, bonus episode later in the week talking about the All-Australian, our thoughts on the All-Australian, who we picked for our All-Australian, and of course the final results of the ladder and what we got wrong and what we got right. And we will might even sneak in a little bit of AFLW coverage there as well, just taking a look at like the games ahead, and just maybe some generalized thoughts. I haven't seen too much of the AFLW this season, so I don't know that much. Sorry, I've seen a lot more than I have. But
I was still watching the Port Adelaide and Fremantle game at the same time, so
so we may do a little bit of coverage on that as well. What else are you up to this week?
No, as I said, I got an email. Hopefully, I'm getting my new microphone tomorrow, so we might record that afterwards. Because again, I'm not too sure how the sound quality is like. As I said, I just know my microphone's dying. Hopefully, it might have actually picked up okay. It's one of those things where I think it's a wire thing. Either way, that'll be good. I've actually got a bit more free-ish time, so it's probably a good time to have a bonus episodes of sorts. So yeah, as I said, just looking to enjoy the week, and looking forward to finals.
That's very good. Finals are going to be very exciting to watch. Of course, I don't have too much on my plate this week. It is my mum's birthday over the weekend, so it'll be nice to spend some time with the family. Otherwise, just work. I'm on my weekend, as we've already established. Tuesday, Wednesdays are my work weekend. So I'll probably just do some stuff around the apartment. I still have a glass cabinet that I need to build now that my wall is finished. So I might build that over the weekend. Otherwise, yeah, just chilling. That's pretty much all I'm doing. Just chilling. Probably play some games, and the like. But yes, thank you all so much once again, and we will see you all in either Wednesday or Thursday for our bonus episode, or next week for episode 121. So until then, take care.